G'day everybody and welcome back to a brand new video here on the YouTube channel. Today I'll be going through my grand final AFL tips and predictions, as well as seeing who I'll be tipping for this year's Norm Smith medal, and also going through last week's tips and seeing which ones I got correct. Now if you guys do go on to enjoy this video, could you please show me that by liking the video, subscribing to the channel if you're new, and of course hitting that notification bell so you can be notified when new videos coming out. Enough wasting your time, let's get straight into it. During last week's games, I got 1 out of 2 tips correct. The game that I did get incorrect was Cats v Lions. I was lucky enough to attend this game, and as there is usually at least one close prelim every year, I'm lucky enough to attend that one. I think the Cats' problem was that the two players that usually play really well for their side just weren't having their best game ever, as Jeremy Cameron only kicks 2 goals, 3, and kicking all 5 of them could have won them the game, but he was playing on Harris Andrews the entire time, so you got to give him credit. And the other player being Tyson Stangle, who was just missing pretty much every goal he was given. Ollie Henry kicked 4 goals during last week's game, which is pretty impressive, but I think the Cats were just relying on him a little bit too much, and unfortunately he just couldn't be the hero. But I don't think I could name a single Lions player that played bad during last week's game, and when you have both Dane Zorko and Lachie Neale racking up over 30 disposals, the Lions are just going to be unstoppable. And now let's go through my tips and predictions for this year's AFL Grand Final. This will obviously be a game at the MCG between the Sydney Swans and the Brisbane Lions at 2:30 this Saturday. Both sides are coming off wins, as the Swans are coming off a 36-point win against Port Adelaide, while the Cats are coming off a 10-point loss against the Brisbane Lions, who will be playing in this game. Last week, the Swans had both Tom Papley and Joel Amartey kick 3 goals each. Errol Goulden so far has an outstanding performance in this year's finals, as he racked up 27 disposals last week and 23 disposals in the qualifying final against the Giants. And Isaac Heaney has done slightly better, with him racking up 30 disposals against the Giants and 24 last week. Callum Archie kicked 3 goals last week, as well as racking up 11 disposals. And speaking of disposals, the Lions had Dane Zorko rack up 32 disposals last week, Lachie Neale rack up 31, Josh Dunkley rack up 28, and Hugh McCluggage rack up 27. Oscar McInerney will unfortunately miss this week's game due to a dislocated shoulder, and there's a bit of speculation about whether or not Joe Danaher will play in the ruck this week, as that is what they did last week. But as it is a grand final, the Lions are definitely going to need him up forward, especially when the Swans have defenders like Nick Blakey and Dane Rampy. So I think the Lions will be forced to bring someone in, and I think that player will be Darcy Fort, as back in round 7 when Oscar McInerney was out with an injury, they brought Darcy Fort in and he ended up racking up 27 hitouts. And although Callum Mills did unfortunately miss last week's prelim due to an injury to his hamstring, it's still 50-50 about whether or not he'll play this week. And they brought in Robbie Fox last week for Callum Mills, which I think might be the better option this week, as there's no point bringing in Callum Mills this week and he just goes out and makes his injury worse in the first quarter and they're forced to play their sub straight away. But then again, Robbie Fox only racked up 3 disposals and didn't have much of an impact last week. Both sides have outstanding midfields, as the Lions have Lachie Neale, Josh Dunkley, and even Will Ashcroft. But the Swans midfield consists of 3 All-Australian players, being Chad Warner, Isaac Heaney, and even Errol Goulden. And although Bruce Reveal will be able to play this week most likely, as his injury is getting much better, I just don't see the Lions making room for him, as they haven't had many changes to their side during this year's finals, and so far it's going pretty well. There is some talk about whether or not Taylor Adams will be chosen for this year's side in the grand final for the Swans. Obviously he missed out on last year's grand final when playing for the Collingwood Magpies, and he unfortunately had to witness his team win the grand final from the sidelines. But quite frankly, there just isn't any room for him in the side, and the only way I see him making the side this year is with him being a potential sub. The Swans finished off this AFL season in 1st place, and the Lions finished off the season in 5th place, 1 spot away from the top 4, meaning that the Lions had to make it to the grand final the hard way. They obviously won the elimination final against Carlton, then they won a game against the Giants in the semi-finals, and then won by 10 points last week against the Cats in the prelim final. But when watching all those games, they genuinely looked like a premiership winning side. They nearly left Carlton scoreless in that first half in the elimination final. They came back from being 44 points down in the semi-final against the Giants, and during the away prelim last week, they bet the premiership favourites at the start of the year, the Cats, in a prelim final at the MCG. And they even bet Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval by 84 points, the Cats. And in my opinion, this will be another close grand final, but I think the Brisbane Lions will get the better of the Swans and win this year's AFL Premiership by 12 points. And my Norm Smith medal prediction, it's probably not the play that most people will be thinking. You know, if the Lions win this year's Premiership, you know, they probably think Norm Smith medal goes to someone like Lachie Neale. But my prediction for this year's Norm Smith medalist will be Kai Lohmann. My reasoning behind this is the fact that he's just had an outstanding performance in this year's finals so far. And over the course of the 3 finals that Kai Lohmann's played in this year, as a total, he's racked up 36 disposals as well as 5 goals. And this is just a man that I see being pretty good on the big stage. And he also kicked 1 goal 3 last week, and although he was quite inaccurate, he was pretty much everywhere during the game. He took some good marks, one of them being in the back line, and he's a forward, so I don't know what he was doing in the back line, but he made quite an impact back there. And just like that, the grand final tips and predictions have come to an end. This will be my final tipping video of the year, so I hope you guys did all enjoy, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.